This morning, the National Party backs down on its threat to tear apart the New South Wales government after the Premier threatened to swear in a new cabinet. The Queensland Premier becomes emotional as she defends her state's tough border restrictions. And utter devastation. Entire towns destroyed by the wildfire crisis engulfing America's west coast.
This is 7 News with Sally Bowrey.
A dramatic day in New South Wales politics, with the Nationals backing down from their threat to break apart from the coalition over a koala protection policy. Alex Hart is in Sydney for us this morning. Good morning to you, Alex. Take us through how the morning unfolded.
Hi Sally, a very eventful morning behind closed doors at least. The Deputy Premier, John Barilaro, arriving here at the government ministerial offices just before 8 a.m. to hold an online party room meeting with his Nationals colleagues to try to map out a way forward on this dispute over koala protection planning laws. The Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, arriving here soon after, having given the Nationals really an ultimatum by 9 a.m. to withdraw their threat to effectively split the coalition or hand in their resignations. It's understood that the Deputy Premier went to the Premier with a plan to bring forward negotiations in Cabinet on this issue, that she refused, and government sources are claiming he caved in and withdrew his threat. But we are yet to hear anything official from either Mr Barilaro or Gladys Berejiklian. There is another Nationals party room meeting scheduled for later today, and there is said to be some significant discontent within Nationals ranks about the way this issue has been handled and about what to do next. One senior Liberal minister came in this morning expressing his obvious frustration with the way this has been handled and saying, refusing to really commit to working with the Nationals in Cabinet in future. Labor has said that they will move a no confidence motion in the government when Parliament returns next week. Let's have a listen.
No doubt they're having their party room discussions, and they need to reflect on what they did yesterday, because this is a tough time for our community.
This is a capitulation that no one expected. He's taken the government to the brink, and his position is now completely untenable.
Now, we were told there would be a joint statement issued at some stage from the Premier and her deputy. We're yet to see that. The Premier has left these offices, headed to the Rural Fire Service headquarters to continue managing the government's response to the coronavirus pandemic. So for the time being, the ball very much in the Nationals' court. But this issue, it seems, is far from over. Sally.
Certainly does. OK, thanks for that. Alex Hart reporting for us there. Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has become emotional while defending her state's tough border policy. Joel Dry is in Brisbane. Joel, it comes after sustained criticism that the Premier has shown a lack of compassion to families wanting to visit dying loved ones.
Hey, good morning, Sally. These heartbreaking stories continue to pile up. People whose lives have been cruelly twisted by COVID-19. Stories like 26-year-old Sarah Kasib, who we introduced you to yesterday, who has been unable to attend her father's funeral here in Queensland because our Chief Health Officer said funerals pose too great a risk. She lives in the ACT where there are no active cases. She was granted an exemption to come to this state but was not allowed to physically be at the funeral service with her family members, instead made to wear that full PPE gear and have a personal, private viewing of her father's body. Then there's the story of 39-year-old Mark Keynes. He's dying of cancer here in Brisbane. His last wish is to see his children. They will be granted an exemption to come from Sydney to be here in Queensland, but they must also face the stress and expense of hotel quarantine. These are the faces of our very tough border stance here in Queensland. And while our Premier says she stands by that policy and she is facing very heavy criticism from down south, she too is personally affected by these stories.
I'm human just like everyone else. These issues hurt me deeply. They hurt me deeply because during this pandemic I've lost loved ones as well. So I know exactly what people are going through. Okay, thanks.
All of this heartbreak, all of this pain is all stemming from our very tough border stance here in Queensland. We tried to push the Premier on a time frame of when that might be relaxed. All she will say is that the situation in New South Wales and Victoria must first be resolved before the entire nation can open up. Sally? OK,
thank you, Joel. There's fresh hope for an end to Victoria's coronavirus wave, with the state recording 43 new cases today. Tegan Doling is in Melbourne. Tegan, what's the latest?
Well, Sally, the state's COVID death toll is at 710, with a further 9 deaths added today. As for our daily total, today 43 new COVID cases across Victoria, so that's around 8 days straight of the double digits. It is steadily falling, but any sudden spike will jeopardise Melbourne's chances of coming out of lockdown. Those in the country areas, though, are very close to reaching the next stage in the roadmap. We know some restrictions will be eased across regional Victoria this coming Sunday. There's also been a lot of talk this morning about scrapping the curfew. It follows revelations that neither Victoria Police or the Chief Health Officer wanted Melburnians to be confined to their homes between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. Now, the daily press conference is still underway, but this is what the Premier, Daniel Andrews, had to say a short time ago.
What it shows you is quite a massive drop in the amount of movement that we've seen right across Melbourne while ever the curfew has been on. And what's clear, if you can limit movement, you will limit the spread of this virus. If you can limit movement, then you will see less people doing the wrong thing.
Now, unfortunately, Myers' Christmas windows won't be going ahead this year. A 64-year tradition coming to an end. A spokesperson has said, Sally, that is sadly because the roadmap out just wasn't looking good for them.
It's going to be a very different Christmas indeed. OK, thank you very much. Tegan Dolling reporting there. There have been 10 new cases of coronavirus in New South Wales. 6 are returned travellers and 4 locally acquired. Of those, 1 is connected to the Liverpool Emergency Department. Another 2 are linked to the Eastern Suburbs Legion Club at Waverley. And there's a new case connected to City Tattersalls Club in the CBD. We have pictures now of a Black Lives Matter protest which has broken out in Brisbane's CBD. It follows the death of an Aboriginal woman in police custody yesterday. Protesters have clashed with officers outside the Brisbane Watch House where the woman died in her cell. At least 2 people have been arrested. Activists are threatening more protests in the city this weekend. In more breaking news this morning, the CEO of Rio Tinto has resigned over the destruction of ancient caves by the company in Western Australia. Boss Jean-Sébastien Jacques and top executives Chris Salisbury and Simone Niven will depart the company. It follows months of pressure over Rio's decision to destroy 2 culturally significant caves in WA's Pilbara region. New data has revealed the number of people travelling within Australia almost doubled in June before the second wave of COVID-19. Political reporter Taylor Aiken is live for us in Canberra today. Hello to you, Taylor. Some good news for operators.
Good morning, Sally. Well, it's no secret tourism has been one of the hardest hit industries of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it seems Australians haven't lost their desire to travel. New data shows domestic tourism spending increased in June by more than $1 billion, while visitor numbers more than doubled from 2.35 million in May to 5.4 million in June. The majority of travel was seen outside of major cities, and that's due to those state border closures, with spending in regional New South Wales surging by almost 170%.
What this data shows is that where people are allowed to get out and travel, there's enormous enthusiasm to do so, and that they're bolting out to the regions, and that's wonderful for many regional tourism businesses. But geez, our cities, our airlines, our airports, our hire car companies, the tour operators, they're all doing it really tough at present, and what they really need to see is some movement around borders opening.
One airline that won't be flying anywhere, though, is Tiger Air. In a letter to customers, operators said, sadly, after nearly 13 years of operation, we have made the difficult decision to discontinue the Tiger Air brand. Customers who have a Tiger Air travel credit will be able to use it on Virgin-operated flights. Sally?
All right, thanks very much, Taylor Aiken there for us. Wildfires have substantially destroyed entire towns in the American state of Oregon. At least 7 people have died in the crisis as fires burn in 3 states along America's west coast. David Woywood is in the decimated town of Phoenix in Oregon. David, the damage there, it's just heartbreaking.
That's right, Sal. This is one of those communities that was hardest hit. This is Phoenix, Oregon, and as you can see, it was once a trailer park home to hundreds of working families on the outskirts of town. And while it's been absolutely obliterated by that fire front today. A number of those families, they have returned. They've been sifting through those remains of their properties, but look, in many cases they have been unable to salvage anything. Now, here in Oregon today, I can tell you that around 500,000 people, or roughly 10% of the state's population, are currently on the run, forced to evacuate their homes in the face of that growing fire threat, and authorities have said that threat is not over yet.
Today marks what we hope is the final day of the wind event that put us in this urgent fire situation. But unfortunately, the weather system is not yet giving us a reprieve.
Now, this fire, as well as a number of others, are currently being investigated for arson as that death toll continues to rise. Currently, it's hovering at around 8 people across those 3 states, that is Washington, Oregon and California, but authorities are bracing for that number to rise when they eventually get into communities like this and start to make those assessments.
OK, thank you very much. David Woywood reporting for us there. The American driver responsible for the hit-and-run death of Australian Andrew Mallard in Hollywood has been jailed for just 30 days. 21-year-old Christopher Smith collided with Andrew Mallard as he crossed Sunset Boulevard last year. He didn't stop and later pleaded guilty to the hit-and-run charge. It's a heartbreaking end for Mr Mallard, who spent 12 years for wrongfully being imprisoned for a murder in Perth. Next in 7 News, a fire in Beirut rattles residents already traumatised by last month's deadly blast. And we pay tribute to veteran actress Dame Diana Rigg, who passed away aged 82. The families of 2 Australian men missing after their ship was hit by a typhoon off Japan are pleading with authorities for the search to resume. William Mainprize and Lucas Order were among 43 crew on board the livestock vessel when it went missing. The Mainprize families say there are 40 men still at sea with 1 lifeboat missing. 2 survivors have been found and the body of 1 crew member has also been recovered. A huge fire has erupted in the same Beirut port that saw a devastating explosion just over a month ago. Containers of cooking oil and other supplies went up in flames, the cloud of smoke unsettling many Beirut residents. Sarah Greenolch has more.
Well, people traumatised by what happened in Beirut last month were understandably terrified. There was a lot of panic when they saw flames and smoke coming from the same port area. The fire started just after lunchtime local time in a warehouse storing tyres and oil. Those flames sending thick, black, toxic smoke up into the air and into the homes of people who were still missing their windows from the deadly blast on the 4th of August. That explosion, of course, caused by the ignition of almost 3,000 tonnes of ammonium nitrate. It killed more than 190 people, injured thousands, and left more than 300,000 people homeless. Shortly after this fire, this latest one started, videos started appearing on social media of port workers running for their lives, racing away from those flames, unaware of what would happen next as firefighters went towards an unknown danger. Those same firefighters are still grieving the loss of their colleagues, 10 who died in last month's explosion. At this stage, the cause of this fire is unclear, but Lebanon's president has come out speculating that it could have been an accident, it could have been caused by negligence or perhaps sabotage. And that response has inspired zero confidence in people in Lebanon who want and deserve some answers.
Veteran British actor Dame Diana Rigg has died after a short battle with cancer. She made her name in the original 1961 cult British spy series The Avengers before becoming a Bond girl. She made a new generation of fans on Game of Thrones.
Do you like it, Nana?
Another golden rose, how original. I eat from plates stamped with roses. I sleep in sheets embroidered with roses. I have a golden rose painted on my chamber pot, as if that makes it smell any better. Roses are boring, dear.
She died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by family. Dame Diana Rigg was 82. Time to check the financial markets now. And the ASX is trading down 52 points in morning trade. The Aussie dollar is buying 72.67 US, 77 Japanese yen and $1.09 New Zealand. Next in 7 News, sport with Matt Shervington, including the injury-plagued Eagles secure a spot in the AFL finals after beating St Kilda. And the NRL stars in hot water for starting a brawl during South Sydney's win over the West Tigers.
Welcome back. GWS has run out of patience with captain Steve Coniglio, dropping him for their must-win clash with Melbourne tomorrow. Last night, St Kilda pushed West Coast right to the end, taking the lead late in the match, but the Eagles prevailed in a 15-point win, despite missing a handful of stars through injury.
They've got it! West Coast are back in front!
Yeah, one of our best wins for the club in my time.
The win soured by a hamstring strain to Jeremy McGovern. Tonight, it's Richmond and Geelong live and free on the screens of 7. South Sydney's 2-point win over the West Tigers in Sydney has been overshadowed by 3 sin bins and an all-in brawl. The Tigers were down 20-12 when Alex Twal was sin binned for a foul. He was quickly followed by Luke Brooks and Dane Gagai for starting a brawl. They've both been charged with striking and will miss 1 to 2 weeks.
Was that a fight?
Punches were thrown.
Well, I didn't hurt anybody. It was a scuffle.
There was a bit of heat there, and I think that was sort of part of what made the game.
It sparked a Tigers comeback, but they went down 26-24 and in the process extinguished their finals hopes. Curtis Scott has revealed he risked his NRL career to clear his name of charges of assaulting police officers and offensive behaviour on Australia Day. Video of Scott being tasered by police was played in court, prompting the magistrate to rule his arrest illegal. All 5 assault charges against Scott have been dismissed.
I put my whole career on the line to clear my name, and that was a risk I was willing to take. And I'm just happy the result that I wanted came out, and the truth finally came out.
Scott has been sidelined with a leg injury but is expected to return next week. Rugby Australia has amended its Gitto rule to allow 2 overseas players who don't meet the 60 cap threshold to play for the Wallabies this year. And the Queensland Reds have named an unchanged side for tomorrow's elimination final against the Rebels at Suncorp Stadium.
It's human nature to get ahead of ourselves, get a bit excited, so we've made sure to make it very clear to the boys that there is no grand final without us beating the Rebels.
The Reds beat the Rebels 19-3 last month. Serena Williams is playing for a spot in the final of the US Open against former world number 1 Victoria Azarenka. The winner of that match will take on Naomi Osaka, who beat American Jennifer Brady in 3 sets.
I kind of consider New York my second home. I really love the atmosphere, even though sadly there's no people here.
Alex de Minaur crashed out of the competition yesterday. The men's semi-finals will be played tomorrow morning. Switzerland's Mark Hirschi has claimed victory on stage 12 at the Tour de France. It's the 22-year-old's 3rd podium finish and first professional win.
I never believed that I could make it because I was really doubtful. Yeah, it just feels super nice. I can't describe it, it's hard.
Primoz Roglic held on to the leader's yellow jersey. Aussie Richie Porte remains 11th, nearly 2 minutes back. And Sally, just a reminder, they cover about 3,500 kilometres, which is equivalent to 4 times from Sydney to Brisbane. The Tour de France, amazing.
It is extraordinary stuff. That's why they're so whip it thin.
They're so good.
Thanks for that, Sherbo. Next in 7's Morning News, we'll have the national weather forecast with David Brown. Let's get a check of the weather forecast now with 7 News meteorologist David Brown. How's it looking, Brownie?
Yes, good morning, Sally. It's raining in parts of Queensland as we go to air, and there's a change lining up the southern states. We can now pick that change up using radar. It's raining over the southeast corner of South Australia. It spreads all the way through southwest parts of Victoria and into the western half of Tassie. Some rain is expected to reach Melbourne tonight, but the thing that stands out is this rain band that will linger for tomorrow. In fact, look at it, extensive rain expected, soaking falls throughout large parts of Victoria and the southern half of South Australia. Let's go to the weather wall, though. In fact, in Brisbane today, it's fine, partly cloudy, coolish, already reached that top of 22 degrees. For Melbourne at the moment, in fact, Sydney, I should say, clear skies, already reached that top of around 20. Now we're going to fly into Melbourne. There you go, partly cloudy conditions, showers developing towards evening. Today's top around 20 degrees, and our last port of call is Perth. Perth, we're expecting fine conditions, coolish and around 19 degrees. To the satellite right now, there's that front we picked up on radar a short time ago. Got this feature that's lingering around the Queensland coast. It's a slow-moving trough. It's supported in the upper part of the atmosphere. That's what's driving showers and isolated thunderstorms throughout parts of Queensland, and that will continue tomorrow, especially around the central coast. And look at the length of that rain band. It extends all the way through into southern parts of WA tomorrow. So for the major centres, we're expecting some rain at times in Adelaide and around 20 degrees. Of course, soaking rain for Melbourne, 17, but Sydney, fine, sunny, a beautiful day, 22 degrees. That's the latest weather. More at 4, Sally.
Thanks, Brownie. See you then. And that's 7 News to Now. We'll keep you up to date throughout the day. I'm Sally Bowrey. Thanks for your company. Have a good day.